If we look at Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 to 17, I'm reading from the New King James. It says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Therefore do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is." In the NIV, it reads, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is." I believe this is such a powerful passage of scripture, and by implication, understanding what God's will is involves understanding purpose. So in essence, it's more accurate to talk about purpose management than time management, because technically speaking, you can't really manage time, but what you're really managing is your purpose. You see, redeem your time means to reclaim, to recover, to retrieve, to rescue, and regain it again, right? That's what it speaks of. And Elizabeth George, speaking of how we have to make the most of our time, says, "We cannot manage time, we can only manage ourselves." And in essence, that's what I'm going to be talking about today. You know, people often ask me about my productivity, and they say, "Paul, do you ever sleep? Paul, how do you manage to do all the things you do?" Right? And my answer is, yes, I do sleep very well. I also tell them that the key to my productivity is my use of time. And I go on to say that we've all been given 24 hours a day, regardless of who you are, whether you're Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Julius Malema, Jacob Zuma, whoever you are, we've all been given 24 hours in a day. The difference between us is how we use that time. And you see, many of us are very good at keeping appointments with others. Very good. You know, so I'll say to you, "Oh, I can't meet with you. I've got a meeting with Pastor Michael," right? We're very good at keeping appointments with others. Few of us are good at keeping appointments with ourselves. And I believe that when we are able to practice self-respect by keeping appointments with ourselves, then we are on our way to our next level of a highly productive life. You see, and this will end up being seen in all aspects of your life, including your rules of engagement when it comes to social gatherings. And let me give you an example. You know, I found that often people will go and they'll spend time. It could be with family and friends and so on. And they'll spend many hours. And sometimes it's with people they don't even like. And then come Monday at work, they're tired. And then they say to themselves, "How was yesterday?" And they can't really account for it. "Did you have any quality conversations?" No. Right? Very often when I visit people, when we go to gatherings and so on, if I'm with my wife in the car, we'll actually look at each other and we'll agree and we'll say, "What time do we need to leave?" And we might say something like, "Okay, 3 p.m. And we know we'll give each other the look at 3 p.m., right? When it's time to go. I also pre-decide before I go to functions. I'll often pre-decide, who do I want to engage with? Who do I want to have quality conversations with? Who do I want to have an appointment with? And then I become very intentional about having quality conversations with specific people. Sometimes it could even be with a child. I remember the one time at a family gathering, my little nephew was still very young, and I just wanted to relieve my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law, and I just took him and I spent time praying, and I was just walking around with him. I think the parents were blessed. I was putting him down to sleep and he ended up sleeping, so I think he was blessed. I was blessed because it was a time of prayer for me. And sometimes that can be your appointment. What I found with many people, they go to these gatherings and there's always that one person who leaves first. And what's interesting is they always have to have an excuse. They can't just say, "Hey, it's been real. I'm off now. Thank you so much." Right? They'll say something like, "Oh, I need to fetch my son from soccer practice or something." Right? And the moment this person announces this, everyone else then says, "Oh, have I parked you in? Have I parked you in? And then I think it's time for me to go too." And the question I always have is, at what point did all these people want to leave? Okay, that's an interesting one. And why couldn't they leave? Right? So I will pre-decide how long I'm going to spend, And sometimes I'll leave and I won't necessarily have to have an excuse. I can say, thank you so much, it's been real. And there I am, I've gone back home, I might be editing my next book or doing something productive. But then I feel like, yes, that was a well-spent afternoon. I want to encourage you to respect yourself, to keep appointments with yourself. You see, it's easy for me to say, sorry, I can't meet you right now. I've got a meeting with Pastor Michael, right? But is it as easy for me to say, sorry, I can't meet you on Saturday morning because at the moment I'm a bit peopled out and I'm actually reading a particular book that's important to me for this next season of my life, okay? But let's have a discussion maybe telephonically in the new week. Right? People struggle with that. And people will say things like, oh yeah, but in my culture, oh yeah, but people might think this of me or think that of me. And then we end up living these average lives. But I want you to know, do you give to every single person who asks you for something? No, you don't. You're not able to because you've got limited resources, right? So why do we do that with our time? Why is it that when it comes to our use of time, we feel this pressure to give it to everyone? It's so important for us to be mission-minded and to guard our time. Time is more precious than money, so we need to guard it.